read the soft intro, and then we'll just start cooking with gas.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. Accretive. Got it. Today's guest is Craig Benner. Craig is the CEO of Accretive Media, and Accretive Media is responsible for connecting brands with the right customers by leveraging over 175,000 digital screens across the country. Their IC methodology combines equal parts expertise and technology and puts measurement at the forefront of the conversation for their clients. Not one for buzzwords, Craig is a straight shooter who knows what it takes to not just get the job done right, but to get it done in a way that keeps clients coming back. Craig, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
So you're joining us from the West Coast today. I see the infamous Dodgers hat on there. Tell us a little bit about how you got into out of home. Was it something that you just lived your whole life eager to become a part of? What's your origin story?
So it's funny. I actually got into out of home by accident, completely by accident. The last 15 years I had been in digital advertising, and I was with a company called Viant, and for the last 11 years, and Viant was kind of the successor of Specific Media, who started behavioral targeting or was one of the pioneers of behavioral targeting and retargeting. It was one of the early ad networks. And I'd been there forever, and we bought MySpace, we bought Adelphic, we bought a video ad network, and, I ran a large sales organization, and I was on a plane 2-3 weeks a month, running a bunch of offices. And then in 2016, we got acquired by Time Inc. And that was kind of the holy grail. And in 2017, I left in mid 2017, and my idea, the plan was to take about a year off and just decompress, enjoy kind of the fruits of my labor. And 3 weeks into that year-long sabbatical, I get a phone call from a buddy on the East Coast. And he says, hey, he was a real estate guy, nothing to do with advertising whatsoever. He was a real estate guy. And he says, hey, Craig, I'm thinking about investing in this company, but they make money with advertising. They do real estate, but they make money in advertising, this like digital out of home. Can you take a look at the investment docs and let me know what you think? And I said, sure. I don't know anything about digital out of home advertising, but I know how people make money in advertising. So I took a look at the docs, and the documents were like, it was all had to do with digital transformation and programmatic digital out of home. And, they were raising money to hang more screens along the Eastern Seaboard in one of the major DMAs. And you could tell, we take for granted, in digital specifically, we take for granted how nuanced programmatic, the word programmatic is. And they were trying to hang like 60 screens in one of the major metros. And I was just like, okay, well, I love the concept, but 60 screens in one demo or one geo is not exactly going to make national programmatic advertisers excited. But this concept is very, very cool. So I started thinking about it, and you could tell the brief was like, they had read a couple Ad Exchange articles, they had read Programmatic for Dummies, but there was a lot of gaps for the trained eye. To the layperson, it didn't, it sounded fantastic, right? There was this automagically, just this money was going to come and demand was going to come and all this stuff. But to the trained eye, it didn't make all this much sense. So I called back my friend and I said, hey, good news, bad news. Bad news is, the scale doesn't quite fit. I don't think you should invest in this. The good news is now I'm excited. Now I think we should do this thing ourselves, but I think we should hang like 10,000 screens in the top 10 DMAs. Can you raise like $20 million for me? You handle real estate, you handle capitalization, I'll handle ad tech, I'll handle monetization, and let's go nuts. And he said, whoa, I just wanted your advice, like pump the brakes. And 3 weeks into my year-long sabbatical was over.
Done.
And
Get back to work.
back to work. And my wife and kids were like, what about all these vacations and trips? And yeah, not so much. So that was kind of the original conception of Accretive was originally we're going to hang a bunch of screens and we're going to build this infrastructure and all of that. And I started doing some research, and I talked to people at Vistar, at Clear Channel, at Outfront, at GSTV, at a lot of the major brands, and it became very evident to me that there was not a supply problem in digital out of home. There was a demand problem. And one of the issues was measurement, you don't buy what you can't measure to a certain extent. That was always what I learned.
Right.
You feed what you can measure. And that was all philosophically, that's what we were taught in digital, is we wanted to create more accountability. And the more accountable we could make our investment, the more ROAS we could create, the more money that we could command from our advertising partners. So that was the way I was looking at things anyway, from a digital out of home standpoint. So I went back to my buddy and I said, hey, change of plans. We don't necessarily need all the supply. Our focus should be creating value. It's always creating value, but creating value for advertisers through demonstrating how this supply and this format, this big, beautiful format can drive results. And with my experience in digital and my experience in identity resolution and identity management, I knew that the challenge was going to be basically translating consumers in the physical world and actually seeing boards, and then being able to measure the efficacy of those exposures on things that they care about and measure in the digital world. But this is easier said than done, right? There's a huge translation layer that needs to take place to be able to say, Tim was physically in front of this 14 by 48 foot board, and then Tim didn't just walk into a store using mobile location data, but Tim is actually laptop ABC 123, and Tim actually went to that advertiser's website. So to do that, you actually need what's called deterministic consumer profile data, and you actually need identity. You need obfuscated or anonymized PII.
And let's just be clear, like, this doesn't exist for out of home when you're kind of approaching it, right? Like there's not a done for you plug and play solution that you can just integrate.
Nope. And this is 2017.
It's not that long time ago. We're only halfway through 2020.
Yeah, no one's talking about this. Programmatic digital out of home is brand new. I mean, it's still brand new.
Sure.
And no one's talking about this. So, and when you think about who has the data assets to actually execute against this, because you need, especially in this privacy climate, you need consumers that have opted in at a census level, that have multiple devices. So there's about 8 companies in the world that have access to this type of data. And that's Facebook, and that's Amazon, and that's Google, and that's, it's Verizon, it's Uber maybe. But then there's the legacy MySpace data with the Meredith data, with the time, and there's some of that data. So with that, I said, okay, so if we can combine geotemporal mobile location data, basically mobile location data, with deterministic or consumer profile data, then you have movement and you have effectively profile data. And with those two things, with privacy compliance, you can connect those dots.
And just for anyone listening that doesn't know what deterministic data means, crystallize what that means for the layperson.
It basically means opt-in, registered, logged-in user-based data.
Like,
so people,
Gmail on my phone.
Yeah, people that have effectively given their permission to basically logged into a computer program like a Gmail, like a Facebook, like a whatever, that have declared their identity.
So with that, I can say, hey, this device is logged into Tim Rowe's email. This device must belong to Tim Rowe.
Yes. Now you can also opt out, and it's very clear and controlled opt out. So with that, now we went in and we basically, we back in early 2018, we filed a provisional process patent for the process to combine deterministic consumer profile data with mobile location data for the targeting and measurement of digital out of home. So what that allowed us to do is target using that data, so we could effectively target tune-in data, website data, retargeting, offline sales data, vehicle purchase data, all of those things at scale, deterministically. But then more importantly, because again, it's a broadcast medium, so targeting is not as important as measurement, but more importantly, we can measure the effectiveness of those exposures. So all of this took place over the first 6 months. And we basically said, okay, this is what we have. This is what Accretive stands for, is we're not just going to be an aggregation of a bunch of inventory, of other people's inventory. We're going to try to recast the industry to create more addressability and more accountability for the industry so we can command more spend. Because the only way that the industry is going to grow is if we can say, hey, that other bucket where you're spending $85 billion digital or TV or anything, the only way we're going to carve into that budget is if we can show that we can drive just as much efficiency and effectiveness as those others. And we can't if it's all probabilistic, survey-based, sample-based guessing on completely different metrics. So that was the thesis, and that was the basis of the company, and we had no clue whether the results would be good or terrible, because it had never been done before.
Sure.
And the first people that signed up was Ticketmaster in April of 2018.
And they weren't doing it for a branding campaign. They wanted to sell some damn tickets.
Exactly. And that was, we launched in February of 2018, and and in April of 2018, they ran a campaign for 2018 draft. Pixels on websites, just Dallas. And in a normal situation like that, it would have been like, hey, let's get a sample size of 100. Let's run some surveys. Let's see if those 100 people, which are part of our panel, went to the website. It was like, no, we scraped 473,000 device IDs over 4 days, and we're able to reconcile like 100,000 device IDs, and like 70,000 of them went to the website.
Wow.
Or something like that.
Wow. Right.
And
go ahead.
And we so it wasn't like small samples. It was census level data. It was real. It was real. The web visitation rate, because it's, you're not clicking on billboards. So the web visitation rate was like 3.5%, which is ungodly. So we're like, okay, how does that compare to people that didn't see the ad? We need to do, methodologically, it needs to be test control.
Right.
So we said, all right, let's figure out what just a regular web visitation rate, the city's buzzing. It's the draft. People, it's almost, football season. People are thinking about football. So we ran a control study for people unexposed, and it was like around 1%. So it was basically, 250%, 3 times the effectiveness by virtue of seeing those big, beautiful ads. So it validated. And then we said, hold on. Okay, well, why don't we do it in another market which just to double check our work,
Sure.
just because we were in awe. So we went to DC, Cowboys, Redskins, same division,
Right.
DC DFW, very similar market size, and same exact results. The control group was like 1.1% web visitation rate. So it was magical, because when you have that idea and you're like, really hope this works, really hope this works, really hope this works, and then it works.
And then it works again.
And then it works again. And then since then, it's, we've done, we did a deal for Halo, had some live experiences for the gaming across like 4 or 5 markets. We did that. We've done some CPG stuff where we've driven CPG sales. We've done, brand studies for a luxury auto where we saw like a 40% lift in awareness. Like we've seen Nordstrom. Like there are just so many, whether it's Nordstrom, whether it's Choctaw casinos, where we did. They got like a 4% web visitation rate. And we won a Media Post Award for best use of out-of-home creative. And that didn't even take into consideration the results that we were getting. So it's just case study after case study after case study of this format works when deployed properly and measured properly, even against metrics that you wouldn't necessarily attribute to this format. And that's how we're going to change hearts and minds. And ultimately, that's how we're going to command more spend.
I love all of those stories, because it's kind of realizing like it's been here all along, and now we just found it. We just found that thing going through a box of old stuff. We've always loved out of home, but oh my gosh, it drives a ton of results. And now that we can measure for it, it's going to attract ad dollars from people who, right, in the digital space where it's measured one way. This is how I measure it. Because each business is in a race, right? A race to acquire more customers at a lower cost. So if you can use a medium like out of home, where the cost per thousand is a fraction of what it might be in direct mail or other types of digital media, if I can spend less and acquire more customers than my competition, then I'm going to win, right? I'm going to push them out. There's a lot of folks that talk about programmatic and different platforms and things like that. What's the difference? Like, what makes a creative different than, maybe somebody else that's a competitor to you?
Well, it's access to unique data. It's access to, it's a measurement methodology that's proven, that's differentiated. It's funny, a lot of people talk about data-driven digital out of home. Just to talk about us, if you go to datadriven.com, that goes to a creative media website. Like,
smart investment.
Yeah, we own the service mark on data-driven data-driven deal. So we've been thinking about this for forever. So it's and again, our ambition, we're a small company, right? We're lean. Our ambition is not to just advance what we're doing. We know that if we do what we think we can do well, the industry wins. And if the industry wins, then we're gonna realize the halo effect of that. So when we talk to the DPAA, when we talk to OAAA, when we talk to those folks, it's not just about a creative. It's about, we want the broader. We want 4% to be 7%, not because we want to be a massive company, but because we know that we will draft off of the success of the broader industry if we can all collectively win. So I mean, from a competitive standpoint, there's a lot of kind of co-opetition right now. The SSPs somewhat work together, the platforms work together. even the specialist agencies are trying to build some tech, but still work with some of the SSPs and DSPs. It's becoming a little more complex, but I'm hopeful that we all remain collaborative to ensure that we're all rowing in the same direction, to ensure that we all have we should be getting more money from brands because we work mentality.
Do you think that the complexity of the ecosystem hurts? Is it just indifferent? What needs to happen? Is it consolidation? Is it education? Where do you think that gap is?
It's always education. Yeah, it's always education. It's one of the biggest issues in adoption of new technology is resistance to change, and that's always been the case in any industry. So how the way you combat resistance to change is through education, and our style of education is through test and validation, and it's through results. But you can't glean results without trying. So it's kind of a dual pronged, hey, just throw a little bit of money at this, test, validate, and then grow, crawl, walk, run type approach. But you need to do that with an open mind. If you have a closed off mind, there's nothing you can do anyway. So we encourage, we encourage people, even if it's just a modest budget, to try. And if you don't like the results, go back to what you were doing before. If you do like the results, great. What we get nervous about is sometimes when people get desperate, they'll stretch the truth about capabilities, and that everyone gets hurt in that scenario, because it becomes a feature battle and a capability exaggeration battle, and that everyone loses credibility in that situation. So we focus on just, hey, this is what we can do. There's an inherent power of no. If people ask us to do something we can't do, we're going to be honest. We can't do that. And if someone else can, we'll say, hey, ask them this question, that question, and this question. And the chances are they probably can't either, but at least And if they can and they fail, I'm hurt. I get hurt by that too, and so does the industry.
Sure, right, because then you have to do twice as much work. Maybe it's the first time a brand's considering, programmatic out of home, and they've been promised this bag of goods. It doesn't quite work out. It may have still worked, but if it doesn't work in alignment with the expectation, now there becomes distrust, and now the next guy has to work twice as hard to win back what should have been somebody loyal to doing out of home.
Yeah, like it's funny, and sometimes you just need to be practical about things. Like for example, when we started getting some of these results, people were just like, wow, how are you getting these results? And we just flat out, so we had to be very transparent with methodologically and just, hey, here's exactly how we did this. And we had to explain, like, in very practical terms, why we thought those results, why we were getting those results. And you would just see the light bulbs come on and be like, okay, well, if you think about it, and I actually wrote this in a byline a while ago. I was like, if you think about it, if you're just a random consumer and you see a 14 by 48 foot, massive, big, beautiful creative, do you think that will be more impactful in as far as recall, as far as response, as far as any of those things, than a 1 inch by ½ inch tiny little creative that is likely 2,000 pixels below the fold that may or may not be served to a human being? Which do you think of the two will have a better response rate? And when you break that down, people start to get it. And then, I've asked the question, somewhat rhetorically, and granted, just to the aspiring salespeople here, only do this to friendly people. I'll ask brands, I'll say, how does it make you feel to know that you are spending more on fraudulent digital than you are on legitimate out of home?
Oh man. But it's a great perspective. So, and I had the opportunity to guest lecture at this digital analytics class in my alma mater. Being the out-of-home guy, the first question I had to ask a room full of 20-somethings who are spending presumably their parents' hard-earned money on a digital marketing degree, I just asked the question of how many of you use ad blockers, and half the hands in the room went up. And I thought that there was a beautiful articulation of irony here, that here are professional marketing students who are actively blocking your ad. And that segued into a conversation about out of home. And I've got a young lady who's a TikTok influencer, which made me feel ancient because I'm like, what the hell's a TikTok influencer? But
Right.
here's a young lady who's a TikTok influencer, and she starts going on and on about this out of home campaign for this local vape shop that she sees every day. And the colors are brilliant. And 30 seconds ago, she just said she blocks her ads online. And now she's telling me about a high rate of recall for a brand that's highly relevant for her. And she's somebody who can leverage her platform to influence a lot of people very quickly. That's the power of out of home.
Right.
That's the power of out of home.
Yeah. I love hearing those things because it's telling. I mean, I love digital when it's done right. Anything that's done right. It's all about media mix optimization. All of the research shows that when you can get a heterogeneous mix of different exposures with different creative messages, recall and effectiveness goes up. So out of home as part of that mix should be, I'm not coming on here saying it should be 30%, but I'm saying 4 to 5% is negligence.
And
there's a reason.
It's a win-win game, right? It's not zero sum because we're pulling it from other people. It's not going to hurt. Like, back to your point, it's a cooperative environment where we all win by gaining market share.
Yeah. So there's a reason why Apple, one of the world's most beloved brands, spends about 25% in out of home of their measured media. It's the brands that win spend over-index heavily on out of home.
Absolutely right. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just copy what really successful, smart people do and make it work for yourself. And I love it's a great point about Apple. What are you working on right now? I mean, it's still early days for a creative, but certainly the social distancing environment has accelerated timelines for some and delayed some for others. What's going on in your world these days?
So, we continue to work on data integrations, on screen integrations, on more creative utilization of screens. Our venue mixes have changed significantly over the last couple months, and we're working on a couple kind of stealth travel related things that we may press release over the next month or two, which should be interesting. So just bigger, bolder things that will be a nice marriage of kind of the art and science, whereas we've focused more on the science side, but then we've seen when the creative side is done right, it makes the science side a lot easier. So we have such a deep appreciation for well done creative, customized creative. All of our media owners, partners, all of our data partners, and we're doing a lot of work on the consumer privacy side too. Like we got to make sure that we're always putting consumer privacy and health first, all of that good stuff. So it's a lot of irons in the fire.
Sure. It sounds like all good things for anyone that's looking to stay tuned with those updates. Where's the best place to do that?
Creativeads.com is the website where we'll update LinkedIn. They can reach out to just info@accreativeads.com. I'm generally fairly accessible. Just if they want to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So those are generally the same or the best ways to find out what's going on with the platform.
Cool. We'll make sure to link out to everything in the description, the show notes. And before we go, this is a new segment inspired by, we're going to call it Carlos Questions from Carlos. My man Carlos Zavala over at InMotion, he said, Tim, can you start asking your guests some like core questions? So if you're down, Craig, you're going to be the first one. You in?
I like it.
All right. If you weren't doing out of home, if you were not in the out of home space, what would you be doing?
Oh, I would like to be, I would hopefully be the USC football coach.
That sounds pretty cool to me.
No, I would be the USC athletic director and would hire Urban Meyer.
Done. Maybe we can start a petition.
That's what I would do.
I like it. It's an honest answer. If you could have a billboard anywhere of any type, what would it say and what would it be?
Ooh, Carlos,
bringing the heat, man. Just
bringing the heat. Not a lot of people have a fastball like that, Carlos. It would be the 405 and Rosecrans, right where I get on the freeway near my house and where my family does, and it would say, "I love you" to my wife.
Strong, man. Strong. Maybe we can make that happen. Cool. And as I'm looking at the other two questions, we kind of covered it throughout the episode. So I'll leave you with this one. This is the softball. Any books or podcasts that you would personally recommend? Doesn't have to be out of home related. Just anything that you do to keep your mind sharp.
So The Art of Not Giving a F is a good one.
Good book.
Yes. And, I'm listening to, The Road Less Traveled right now.
Interesting. You say like an audiobook?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. So those are, that one's a little more spiritual. But then there's always, it's The Art of Not Giving a polar opposites.
Right. I mean, maybe The Art of Not Giving an F is the road less traveled, and and there's something in that for everyone. Well, awesome, Craig. This has been for me a really helpful education, more high level on a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes of programmatic. So, for that, thank you so much, man. Thanks for being a guest.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. And this has been helpful to you. I encourage you to share it with your network. As always, click the subscribe button down below in the corner. And if you want to get your very own out-of-home swag, you can check out oohswag.com. And don't forget to use promo code INSIDER for 10% off your first purchase. We'll see you guys next time.